No one ever believes a love story can end when it looks perfect from the outside. For years, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman were seen as Hollywood's golden couple. Red carpet smiles, gentle touches, interviews filled with laughter and praise. They were the kind of couple people pointed to when they wanted to believe that real love could survive fame. But perfection, when held up too long, begins to crack. It didn't start with a fight or a scandal. It started with distance. Quiet, unnoticed distance. Nicole's career pulled her from one film set to another, from one country to the next. Keith spent more time in Nashville, locked away in studios, surrounded by music instead of cameras. At first, they called it supporting each other's dreams. Later, it became something else. They stopped sharing the little things. Days passed without real conversations. Weeks passed without connection. When they spoke, the words were polite, careful, almost scripted. The kind of conversations people have when love becomes routine and routine becomes silence. Friends noticed before the public did. Keith, once open and full of warmth, became quieter. In interviews, his answers shortened. When Nicole's name came up, his smile appeared half a second too late. Nicole, always composed, leaned deeper into her work, smiling through exhaustion, hiding behind elegance and control. Then came the photograph. Keith Urban, walking through a quiet Nashville street, dressed casually, beside a woman no one recognized. No hand-holding. No obvious affection. Just two people walking together. The photo should have meant nothing. Instead, it meant everything. Within hours, the image exploded across the internet. Keith Urban spotted with mystery woman. Trouble in paradise? Keith said nothing. Nicole said nothing. And silence, in the public eye, is never neutral. Fans began digging through old interviews, replaying clips, searching for signs they might have missed. Social media split into sides. Those who defended the marriage and those who claimed the cracks had been there all along. Entertainment insiders whispered that Keith had been living mostly in Nashville. That the couple had been leading separate lives for months. No confirmation. No denial. Just quiet. Then came one sentence from an unnamed source. They've been emotionally separated for a long time. That was enough. The fairy tale didn't shatter all at once. It faded. Quietly. Painfully. No dramatic announcement. No public blame. Lawyers handled everything behind closed doors. Papers were signed without headlines. The world barely noticed when it ended. But it did notice what came next. Months after the divorce, Keith was seen again in Nashville, this time sitting in a small cafe, across from the same woman from the photograph. Unassuming. Not famous. Her presence felt different. Peaceful. Her name was Lena Hayes. A respected music producer. Private. Grounded. Someone who avoided attention rather than chased it. She wasn't part of Hollywood's noise. She belonged to studios, not red carpets. The internet reacted instantly. Who was she? How long had she known him? Was she the reason everything fell apart? Once again, Keith stayed silent. Lena stayed even quieter. But curiosity has a way of digging deeper. Reporters uncovered an old detail. Years earlier, Lena had worked on a charity concert where both Keith and Nicole had appeared together. A forgotten credit on a long-forgotten event list. Insignificant. Until it wasn't. Because that meant Lena hadn't just arrived after the ending. She had been there before the cracks became visible. And then, one afternoon, everything changed. Outside a Nashville studio, reporters surrounded Lena. Questions came fast, sharp, and relentless. Accusations disguised as curiosity. Speculation disguised as truth. Lena paused, looked directly at the cameras, and calmly said, "You all think you know their story, but not everything you see is the truth." 7 seconds. One sentence. That was all it took to shake the image of perfection the world had believed in for years. And it was only the beginning. Lena Hayes' words echoed everywhere. Not everything you see is the truth. Talk shows repeated it. Headlines twisted it. Social media dissected it word by word. For the first time, the public began to question a story they had never doubted. Old interviews resurfaced. Moments once seen as romantic now looked tense. Smiles seemed rehearsed. Interruptions felt controlling. Silence felt heavy. Nicole continued appearing in public, graceful as ever, but something had changed. She avoided certain questions. Cancelled interviews. Her confidence looked thinner, stretched tightly over pressure no one could see. Keith disappeared completely. No appearances. No statements. Just music. Rumors spread that he was writing again. Songs filled with pain, honesty, and relief. Songs that didn't pretend anymore. The internet split again. Some defended Nicole fiercely, calling Lena reckless and intrusive. Others believed Lena's calm tone carried more truth than any polished public image. But Lena didn't continue speaking. Until she finally did. Not through tabloids. Not through social media. Through a quiet recorded conversation with a journalist she trusted. No cameras. No dramatic lighting. Just her voice. She didn't accuse. She didn't attack. She didn't name villains. She spoke about pressure. About what happens when perfection becomes control. When appearances matter more than emotions. When silence is used to keep peace instead of heal pain. She spoke about witnessing moments behind the scenes, tension disguised as teamwork, exhaustion hidden behind smiles. She spoke about watching two people slowly stop listening to each other. Sometimes, Lena said softly, there's no single bad person. Just two people holding on to an image instead of each other. She made one thing clear, she was not the reason the marriage ended. She never crossed boundaries. Never interfered. She was simply someone who saw the cracks before they became visible to the world. And when Keith found himself alone in the aftermath, she was someone who listened. Not as a celebrity. Not as a savior. But as a human being. That changed the narrative. The story was no longer about betrayal or scandal. It became a story about emotional exhaustion. About the cost of maintaining perfection in a world that rewards appearances more than honesty. Nicole never directly responded. But slowly her image shifted, not shattered, but humanized. No longer flawless. No longer untouchable. Just someone who, like anyone else, may have struggled under the weight of expectation. Keith eventually returned to the stage. No interviews. No explanations. Just music. And in those songs, fans heard what no statement could ever say: loneliness, regret, freedom, and healing. As for Lena, she stepped back into silence. Not because she was afraid, but because she had said enough. The truth didn't need drama. It only needed space to be seen. And the world learned something uncomfortable that day. Perfect love stories don't always fail because of betrayal. Sometimes, they fail because no one was brave enough to stop pretending.